On today's episode, we'll get into some news and notes around the league, including an interesting new name to add to the Leafs GM search. Canada wins gold at the World Championships, and a certain Leafs prospect turning heads at the Memorial Cup. All that more coming up on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the May 29th edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano from TSN, as well as my guy, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet. What's going on, pal? Did you enjoy your weekend?
Yes, I did. Enjoyed a little bit of sun, got a little bit of golf practice then there. So looking for a good summer. I didn't get out onto the links as much as I wanted to last summer. I did not see any Leaf players there. For anybody who's going to make that joke, I don't have the prestige of playing at the same courses that these Leafs players play.
No, neither do I. Although I'm not a big golfer. I'd like to be. That's something that like every summer, it's one of those things I tell myself every year. This year I'm going to learn to play golf and like be a good golfer. And every year the summer goes past and I think I would go to the driving range like 3 times and never actually hit the course, never actually play a full game unless I'm at a bachelor party or something. I'm not going to get any good that way, Dave. So tell you what, keep me honest. Take me to the course. Let's go sometime. We'll have a little Locked On Leafs, little outing at the golf course this summer. What do you think?
We could definitely arrange that. You're just gonna have to book up some time because it's not a quick game. And that's probably the biggest challenge is trying to get a full game in, especially if you want to do a full 18.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. All right. We got a bunch of little news and notes we want to get to today. We'll start with what we know about here in Toronto. Obviously, it is the Locked On Leafs podcast. By the way, you can find this podcast wherever you get your podcast from. Also, find us on YouTube, and please, we would ask you hit subscribe. We do put out content each and every weekday, even through the off season, right? The Leafs, they may be done and hitting the links, but we're here grinding away every single day, putting out the most up-to-date content for you. And unfortunately, though, Dave, there's not much to update in terms of what's going on in the Leafs front office GM search. I mean, the name that keeps popping up, and the only name that's really been popping up of late has been Brad Treliving, the former general manager of the Calgary Flames. It's now been confirmed by multiple sources that he has officially interviewed for the Maple Leafs GM job, but it's also been noted that he wasn't going to get offered the job right away. They did want to interview a couple more candidates. Some other names have surfaced as potential candidates, but no other firm names have really kind of come to light here. Is that surprising to you at this point that it's been like 2 weeks since Kyle Dubas got let go, and the only real name we've heard of any concreteness is Brad Treliving?
Yeah, I know. It's really strange because, I mean, at the same time, when you listen to all the other GM openings, like when Calgary was doing theirs, obviously with Pittsburgh, it was the same names being talked about. And I don't know if it's just teams are now just going back to the well of what, other teams have used. And I understand that because there's, when you're looking for experience, there aren't a lot of experienced guys just floating around out there. So, and I understand like the playoffs are still happening. There might be some candidates that are not available to speak right now. That's something that's also gotten a lot of talk recently as well. But yeah, I'm a little surprised we haven't heard, not even with just the Leafs job, with other jobs out there, that there haven't been many names being linked out there.
Yeah, there were a couple of names that have surfaced somewhat. I think someone said that there might be interest in Chiarelli, Mark Bergevin. Like there could be interest in these guys. Again, to your point, maybe people are linking them just because they are guys with experience, being a general manager. I think I'm on actually the very short list of people who Not to say that I think Bergevin would be the right man for the job or should get the job, but I don't hate that as much as most. I've seen a lot of people say that would just be an inexcusable, fireable offense if Brendan Shanahan brought in Mark Bergevin to do the job. I don't know if that's the case. Is he better than Dubas? I guess I don't know, but I didn't think he did a horrible job building a team in Montreal. But that's just that's my opinion. Bergevin wouldn't be the worst candidate out there, I would say. But one new interesting name has kind of entered the sweepstakes here, Dave, over the weekend. Who's the name that Elliot Friedman brought up this weekend during his 32 Thoughts segment?
Yeah, because Elliot was being very careful with the names that he was throwing out there because he didn't say for sure he heard if they were talking, but when he brought Bergevin, Chiarelli, I can't remember who the third name was. People were just like, ugh. And then all of a sudden he's like, I did hear that the Leafs reached out to one Doug Wilson. And that got me to sit, when you do like a little bit like that, sit forward a little bit when you hear a name. Doug
Yep.
Wilson, never thought I would hear that name for a couple of reasons. One, he was dealing with some medical issues, and that's why he was no longer working with San Jose. He stepped down. Mike Greer took over for him there, so didn't even know that this was a possibility. So Friedman actually said not too long ago that Wilson had been looking to get back into working again in hockey. I thought, okay, if he was going to get back to working, maybe he do something in San Jose, but it felt like that was like also San Jose saying we need to turn the page a little bit here and go in a new direction. So I guess maybe like that was just an easy way to do that transition. So that name is very interesting because we know what San Jose has accomplished. Like out of all the teams over the last 15 years, I say they were one of the more consistently run
Oh,
teams.
yeah. Yeah, the San Jose Sharks, literally from the early 2000s, although because he was the GM from 2003 all the way until 2002 last year when he stepped away for medical reasons, as you mentioned. And of those, I mean, they made the playoffs pretty much every single year. Like they were always a top tier team up until the last couple of years after. But he's the one who built that team what it was. Bringing in Thornton. Obviously having Patrick Marleau turn into what he became, drafting Hurdle, Pavelski, all these players who went into building I guess it wasn't a dynasty, but they're a perennial President's Trophy contending team year in, year out. I think they ended up making 4 conference finals appearances and then did make the one Stanley Cup final back in 2016 against Crosby and the Penguins, which they lost. But, this is a guy who knows how to build a good team. And he's done that in the past. So he is a little older though, because I think he's 65 years old. Like he's not a spring chicken. Like he's a little bit on the older side, I would say. So how much longer does he want to get back into management in this high level position in this type of market? I mean, San Jose is one thing. Being the GM in Toronto is a completely different beast. Is it a situation he wants to get himself into? I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. But it is interesting that, reportedly they've had some preliminary discussions if whether or not there would be interest on both sides to go through on that process and maybe make Doug Wilson the next general manager. Also, it sounds as though one of the Leafs' potential coaching candidates is about to get scooped up here. Peter Laviolette, not sure if you've seen the update as of yesterday, but it sounds like it's getting close between him and the New York Rangers. So, the Leafs, by not getting this GM job kind of sorted out quickly, now they're starting to lose out on some head coaching candidates because I thought Lavi would have been a good option.
Yeah, I mean, I know people when they hear Peter Laviolette's name, they don't really take into account how successful he's been in the NHL. I know that they see like he's been moving around from team to team to team, but it's the unfortunate part is like if the Leafs do really not intend on bringing back Sheldon Keefe, it's just such a weird situation that you're going to keep this open for as long as possible with the GM job and then be like, all right, Sheldon, sorry, you're gone. And then you look at it could be a similar situation with the Kyle Dubas. It's like, all right, Kyle Dubas is gone. Let's see who we got out there that we can bring in. And it's like, oh, like half the people that we could have considered have been hired or moved on, right? Like Laviolette's a name. I mean, Spencer Carberry could be gone pretty soon if Washington decides to pull the trigger on that. Obviously, there could be some other openings depending on how the rest of the playoffs go and how, if Kyle Dubas goes into Pittsburgh, is Mike Sullivan a guy that becomes available? Like that's something that, like, yeah, the Leafs want to make sure they're doing their due diligence on all their GM stuff. But if Brandon Shanahan is waiting for the new GM to make that move and pretty much is saying, you're coming in, you can get rid of the coach, we can get another coach, and leaving it for the GM to make that decision, you're setting yourself up to now having to hire the GM, and then he's got to take some time to then go through his list of coaching candidates. Like it's not going to be something that's going to happen instantaneously.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that list is a short list already, and he's part of the interviewing process as a GM is who would you want as your head coach, and he probably would have a list of like 3 or 4 guys that he'd like to bring in.
Yeah,
and that process might be pretty quick. But to your point, I mean, the quicker you finalize your general manager position, the quicker you can get to who your next head coach is going to be. So, I mean, that's where we're at right now. No GM, which means the coach is very much in limbo. I mean, technically, I guess Sheldon Keefe, there's still a possibility that they could come back with him. He has not been let go yet. He does have a contract for next season as well. So maybe they come in and the GM, says, all right, let's see what Keefe has for one more year. I guess that is also a possibility. And then maybe next summer they can go in a different direction. But Laviolette, I thought, was a pretty good option. There's this clip that's going around. I sent it to you, Dave. We want to quickly play it because if you're wondering, like, why does Mike think that Peter Laviolette would be a good option here in Toronto? What has Laviolette done? He won a Stanley Cup back in 05-06 with Carolina, but since then has not won a Stanley Cup. He's made it to one Stanley Cup final since then. But you talked about how much we wanted to see accountability out of the team this year, and we just didn't really see that, especially in a lot of the postseason, scrums that we saw. This is a coach that demands accountability, and I kind of like that. Here's a clip from, I think it was through the 24/7 series years back when he was with the Philadelphia Flyers, and this was a little in between intermission rant that he had on his team after a couple of crummy games.
That period were 7-1 for the opposition. Do you know why, Hartsey? Because it's about as casual as it gets. As casual as it gets. In Boston, we said, all right, got mixed in the schedule. Let's turn the page. Somebody tell me, what the is the difference now? What's the problem now? I want to see people rip their heart out of their fucking chest this period. And if you don't, you're probably not going to like your ice time. Take your first shift. You'll get it. Earn the second one. I'm not putting up with it. It's too much. It's too much. Don't allow it. D-zone coverage, soft down low. Out to the points, casual strides. We don't want to block a shot because it hurts. One game, Boston, all right, let's move on. Tonight, unacceptable. Not going to happen. We're way better than what we just showed. Every guy in here knows it, and you should not accept it. Don't. You got 20 minutes. You win a period, you win a game, we move on. But you need to dig in right now, every guy. Enough is enough. Start playing with some jam in here. Let's go.
Dude, how many times do you think the team, the Maple Leafs, the stars on this team needed to hear something like that? Something like that to get them going. Like, that's the type of accountability that I think maybe this team needs. There was a couple of quotes there that I do want to pull out. He said specifically, he said, if I don't like your first few shifts, you're not gonna like your ice time the rest of the game, basically. And that is something that, Sheldon Keefe never, ever did. If somebody was having a lazy game, he didn't really limit their minutes. Like, there was no John Tortorella-esque benching. Not that I think there needs to be complete benching, but Even the one time where Marner was benched for one shift, he came out after. He's like, that wasn't a benching. Like, he didn't even look at it as that, instead of taking, an opportunity to kind of say, well, yeah, when you dog it for a shift, that's what happens here. You never had any of that. So, that's the type of stuff that I think maybe this team needs going forward. Like, I understand Mike Babcock was that way at some point, but don't you have to believe, Dave, that this team at some point has matured enough to the point where they now need a Mike Babcock kind of coach, like a hard ass type of coach who's not just going to let you do whatever you want. Like, I think they need a little kick in the pants every now and then, and there needs to be some sort of accountability. I didn't see it a whole lot out of Sheldon Keefe in the last couple of seasons, and based off of, the way that the post-game, postseason media availabilities went, nobody took accountability for how the season went along. I would imagine under Peter Laviolette-led Leafs team, there might be a little bit more accountability in the play of the team, and that might be something that could be good for the Maple Leafs going forward.
And not even Peter Laviolette. Look at the guy who just led his team to the Stanley Cup final, Paul Maurice.
Yeah.
Mike, you and I were there when the Panthers were in town during the Panthers got great news where a goal was called back.
And
but that didn't stop Paul Maurice from giving it to his team on the bench where everyone can see and hear it. Right? You're like, as a coach, you got to be willing to. It's your voice that gets the players going in those situations where if the play is if it's substandard, if it's not to what you believe is the standard, they have to hear it.
Yep.
They can't be told that it's acceptable or things are going to turn around.
Yep. I'll say this too. Like, you look at Vegas, who's currently up 3-2. Hopefully they can get over the finish line. I guess they were up 3-0, and now it's looking a little dicey. But they're up 3-0 in the series, and whatever. They're up 3-2 in the series. Look who their coach is, Bruce Cassidy. Do you remember what they were saying about Bruce Cassidy when his time was done in Boston? They didn't really like the coach because he was kind of a hard ass. And sometimes that's what you need to get the best out of a group. They may not have liked him, but they got a hell of a lot out of that group with Bruce Cassidy. And now he's over in Vegas. And I remember when Max Pacioretty got traded, he came on, I don't remember what podcast it was, but he was on some podcast and he was talking, maybe he was Spitting Chicklets. And he said he felt like there was a lack of accountability in Vegas. And then all of a sudden they bring in Bruce Cassidy and you've got that accountability back into that locker room. And look, they're one win away from a Stanley Cup championship. It's to have a player's coach, I think, is important for certain teams and at certain points in their career. But for a team that maybe needs to get a little kick in the pants and get over the hump that they've been in, I think maybe a bit more of an old school coach might be what this club needs at this point. And if the players aren't ready for it, maybe they're just not ready to. They're not willing to do what it takes to win if they don't want a coach who could do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's ultimately how I'm starting to feel at this point now. So we'll see who the coach ends up being. There's a lot of different candidates out there. But again, before you get to the coaching search, they got to finish up with their GM search. So hopefully that can happen as soon as possible. All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, let's chat a little bit about a certain Leafs prospect that's turning heads over at the Memorial Cup, scored a goal over the weekend, and also over in Latvia, Canada, winning another gold medal. We'll chat quickly about that as well. But first, Dave, before we get any further, let me tell you all about one of our show sponsors today, and that is eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with the vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We're hosts of this podcast, one in which you can listen to or watch up on YouTube each and every weekday. If you're enjoying this content and you are new to the show, we ask that you do subscribe and come back because, again, we're putting out this stuff for you guys each and every day. And if you are one of our everydayers, thank you so much for coming back once again. All right. As you know, the NHL is doing their thing. Junior hockey is also wrapping up their final tournament here with the Memorial Cup. And there's only one Leafs prospect that is taking part in the Memorial Cup. A lot of the Leafs prospects are, there's a lot of American and European Leafs prospects at this point playing either in the NCAA or playing overseas. So only one Leafs prospect actually making their way into the Memorial Cup, and he is starting to turn some heads. My friend Fraser Minten, the Leafs second-round pick from this past season, scored a goal in Kamloops' win the other night, and he's really starting to make a name for himself out there. I've seen a lot of people tweeting that he looks healthy for the first time in a while. Cam Robinson, who's a big time CHL scout, and he talks about it. I believe he's with Dauber. He is someone who certainly is starting to get impressed by what Fraser Minten's been doing. So that's good news if you're a Leaf fan.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that he left the Leafs training camp with an injury. So injuries I think he had like 3 different injuries this year. He didn't go to the World Juniors because of an injury. So a lot of his development was taken back. And then I know that Kamloops made the big trade and loaded up because every team that's going to the Memorial Cup always, trades away their whole future just to try to make sure they're prepped for this tournament.
Like their next 7 first-round picks and second-round picks. And remember that Olin Zellweger trade? It was like 12 picks. I think like 5 of them were first-rounders. It was insane.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. Like the trades that they make in the CHL, like, here, we're just going to give you everything we got. I think they had 4 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. Oh, here, a third-round pick, 4th-round pick, 5th-round pick, and 3 players for Olin Zellweger and Ryan Halfer, which is just ludicrous. But, I mean, the good thing for Minten is that, he's showing what he can do in situations that maybe we didn't expect, right? His goal scoring ability is there, especially on the power play. That seems to be his favorite time of the game is to produce on those ones there. And, he's also a guy that doesn't mind mixing it in. I did see that he would fight, throw the big hits. That's something the Leafs don't really have a lot of, guys that are going to play with a little bit of jam.
Yeah. Well, I remember him when he was drafted, he was kind of touted as, maybe he could be a tweener, a middle 6 guy, but sounds as though he was, drafted to be a really solid, a third line center, right? A 2-way defensively responsible center who can provide some offense as well if he can grow into it. So that's what I recall at the time of the draft. That was his calling card, was to be a really good third line center. But hey, man, if he can develop a little more offense to his game and then just become, like a second line guy, number 2, at some point, that certainly will help this team a lot moving forward. I don't know what his timeline is in terms of when to expect to see him in the NHL. I guess I would be a little surprised if it's next season, but we'll see what ends up happening. But it's nice to see that there is a Leafs prospect that is starting to make a bit of a name for himself and rise up those prospect rankings, throughout hockey coverage. So I'll be excited to see what else Fraser Minten could do throughout the week as the tournament progresses. You noted that there was the Athletic dropped something about Leafs prospects. You want to talk about that really quickly?
Yeah, so the Athletic, Scott Wheeler put out his prospect pool rankings for all 32 NHL teams. The Leafs have actually gone down his list. They were ranked 15 last year. Now they are down to 18. So they still remain in the top 20, but obviously, you want to see them a little bit higher than 15 or 18 in that range. Obviously, and Wheeler did note this in his column, that part of the reason too is the uncertainty of Rodion Amirov's status and his health. if he's probably healthy and doing a little bit better, maybe his stock raises it up a little bit. Like he'd probably be, if he was healthy and playing to his abilities, he'd be among the top 3 Leafs prospects, I would say.
He's at that age now, where as a mid first round pick, he'd be knocking on the door of being in the NHL. Like that's where he would be at this point. But obviously he's not, and hopefully at some point he can get his career back in order after has he successfully beat I thought I saw a report or something that I don't know if he rang the bell yet or not, but he's battling, man. He's battling, and then I know that he's been back on the ice. I do know that is the case, and again, hopefully he can get to a point where he can get his career back on track and make the NHL, because that'd just be a terrific story, right? A kid that gets drafted high and then unfortunately ends up getting diagnosed with cancer, and then took a couple years off of his development, and then gets back onto the ice and finally pulls through and makes it to the NHL. That'd be just such a great story. So hopefully it can happen. We're all rooting for him, obviously. But yeah, a couple other Leafs prospects to watch. Topi Niemela made his way across seas. He's been playing, or he was playing, until they got eliminated with the Marlies in the AHL. He's one of their top defensemen throughout the playoffs. Roni Irvinen also made his way over here from Finland. And a couple other guys, Nick Moldenauer, who's going to be in the NCAA, and Nikita Gribyankin is another prospect who actually really started to turn heads over in Russia. He's a player who, I don't know if there was a lot of people expecting him to do a whole lot. I think he was a first or a 5th round pick or something like that from the by the Maple Leafs last year. I'm just quickly looking up what what year he was drafted in, but it was either last year or the year before. No, it was last season.
Yeah, 2022.
Yeah, so it was last season, but he had a big season, playing in the KHL, and a lot of people thought that he was not going to be in the men's league. I guess this season he started the year off in the MHL and the VHL, but ended up going up to the KHL. And I mean, as a young player, just 20 years old, 19, 20 years old this season, for him to end up with a full 45 games with 26 points in the KHL, that's not what you see typical from, young Russian players. So a lot of excitement about potentially Gribyankin being a nice little find there in the I think he's a 5th round pick. So there's some prospects. There's some guys who've got some excitement to them, but obviously with Matthew Nyes, he's going to graduate from prospect status next year. I assume he'll be a full-time guy. Hopefully Nick Robertson can stay healthy and become a full-time contributor with the Maple Leafs. And I would also assume that Joe Woll will also become a full-time contributor for Toronto next season as well. So, but at some point, all these other kids, they got to make their way up, and they got to start building, this prospect pipeline and have them come up through the system as well. All right, buddy, let's take one more quick break. When we get back, let's chat a little bit about Canada winning gold, Canada gold, once again at the World Championships. So we'll get to that on the other side. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. Listen to Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. Canada winning another gold medal over at the World Hockey Championships. They defeated Germany by a score of 5-2. Got a couple goals from Sammy Blais. Lawson Krause scored a goal. Toffoli, Scott Laughton. So they're big boys, because this wasn't a star-studded group that sometimes you'll see go play at the World Championships. This wasn't. They had 2 players, and that was Lawson Krause and Tyler Toffoli, who had scored 20 goals or more in an NHL season. That's it, just 2. So it's kind of a grinded-out type of team, and we weren't sure what to expect with this Canadian team, especially after they lost to why am I blanking here? Not Slovakia. Who did? Norway. Lost to Norway in a shootout, which was like, what is going on here? but they were able to bounce back and make their way through to the gold medal and ultimately got lucky, I guess, with Germany upsetting the USA. And then it was a bit of an easier path. They had to beat, Latvia in the semis and then Germany in the final. They never had to play the Americans who were favored to win the tournament at the end of preliminaries. So kind of got themselves a nice favorable route to the gold medal. And they made no mistake. Nice little 5-2 victory.
Yeah, and little retribution from last year where they lost in overtime to Finland in the gold medal game, beat Finland in the quarterfinal this year. Usually it's like, as we said in the last pod, that Finland and Sweden are kind of like the kings of this tournament because that's like they get all their countrymen to come back and play.
They all play.
Yeah. Not as many this time around, I would say. But yeah, I think it's nice to see some of these guys that maybe you don't get to see in the spotlight get that opportunity.
Did you see what former Maple Leaf was on Team Canada?
On Team Canada.
Here's trivia for you. Which former Maple Leaf who was traded
I know
Josh Levo played for Team Canada this year at the World Hockey Championships?
We're talking about is it Amadio?
No. Amadio's playing for Vegas right now, pal.
That's right. No. Oh, Carconi.
Michael Carconi.
Wrong Italian name.
Yeah. Carconi, who's the Josh Levo return. And then he was playing for Team Canada, won gold with Team Canada. So congrats to former Maple Leaf, Michael Carconi. I think he's with Arizona now, I think I saw.
Yes.
I opened up a Young Guns of his recently, and he was in an Arizona sweater. So I'm pretty sure he's still with the
Young Guns. A lot of sweaters in the lot, especially because I know he was with Vancouver and then from Vancouver. For Vancouver.
He did a lot. He didn't. He played in the AHL, and I think he was in the Sens organization at some point. He was maybe part of the CC trade, I think maybe. Because he was there, he played with Corrado, because Corrado was talking about how he played with him when he was in Belleville. So he was in Belleville, and then I guess Tucson and Arizona. So good on Michael Carconi, former Toronto Maple Leaf, winning himself a gold medal. Adam Fantilli wins himself a gold. How about that? Did you see what type of year this guy had? Like if there wasn't a Connor Bedard in this draft, like this would be a pretty good first overall pick. This has got to be one of the better second overall picks that we've seen as a prospect coming into the season. I don't know if you saw that tweet that was going around about what this guy has done in the last calendar year, but he led the NCAA in goals. You showing it here? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Cam Robertson said, so he led the NCAA in goals with 30, led the NCAA in points with 65. By the way, he's an 18-year-old freshman. He did this. It was insane. En route to winning the Hobie Baker Award for best player in all of college at the age of 18. It's wild. NCAA Freshman of the Year, obviously. Won gold for Canada at the World Junior Championships. And then obviously winning himself a gold medal at the World Championships as well. And then is expected to be the number 2 pick in the draft this year. So as upset as the Ducks probably are that they didn't end up with the number 1 pick and they won't get Bedard here. What's going on with their videos here, guy?
It just changed our whole layout.
That was that was strange. They probably are pretty happy with this nice little consolation prize. This Fantilli consolation prize feels better than the Bobby Ryan consolation prize from many years ago.
I was going to say, is this like the Jack Eichel to the Connor McDavid?
Yeah, honestly, this is kind of what it feels like. This is what it feels like, where it's like if Eichel was, the prospect the year before, he would have been the number 1 pick, and maybe even the year after. It would have been interesting to see Eichel or Matthews, who would have went number 1 overall. But, this is very similar, where it's like you've got two guys who are worthy of a number one pick. One just happens to be generational, but this guy has a chance to be a superstar as well. But generational is better than superstar, so you're going to take that guy number one. But there's many, many, many teams, I'm sure, that would have loved a chance to draft a Jack Eichel level player with their first overall pick. I mean, outside of McDavid, go look at all the number one picks that Edmonton took over the years. I guarantee you, Jack Eichel would have been a better pick than all of them. I mean, no disrespect to Nuge, who had a hell of a season this year, but I'll take Eichel over Nugent Hopkins all day, every day. Yakupov, obviously, Taylor Hall. Yep, give me Eichel. So, this is very, I guess, similar to the McDavid, Eichel, Bedard, Fantilli situation here. All right, buddy. Good stuff. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Go ahead, leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment down below. Who do you think would make a good GM candidate? Are you interested in Doug Wilson? And what do you make of the coaches available as well, as we can maybe start to poke around and dig around on that situation as the league, as the week progresses. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.